Hello, everybody, and I'm so happy to be here tonight with special guest, Dr. Ron Rufo. And I was really excited when he said yes, because this is a person who has a trajectory a little bit like mine, in the context that he has experience with human trafficking and investigations in sex crimes, but also has a really big passion for mental health advocacy and making some changes in all of our frontline first responder um, work environments. So he is really well versed in the culture, in the stigma, and some of the things that we can do to change the future, to change the pathway, to change the way that our families and our communities are all looking at mental health. So please welcome Ron Rufo to the show.
Thank you, Krista. I really appreciate you having me, and everyone from Battle to Be as well. It's a great organization, and I'm happy to be part of it.
I love everything about what you're doing, and I think that it's so much bigger and so much more impactful because you served as an officer. So had such a long career. What made
Well,
you do that in the first place?
thank you. What made me want to be a police officer? You know what? I came on late, Krista. I didn't come on until I was in the academy at 40. I took the test at 35 years old, and I was happy to be a police officer when they said start the academy. But that was 5 years later. Nothing with the Chicago Police Department happens overnight. Nothing. Even if they were to fire somebody, it takes a while. And so I was happy to be at 40 years old. I was in the academy, finally realizing my dream. And it was probably the best time of my life. I had a great time as an officer, trying to help as many people as I can, my fellow officers as well. I was able to join peer support at a young time in my career. And after my first 2 years on, I was asked to become a team leader for peer support, which really broadened my horizons and made it uh, a lot easier to try to help other officers that were hurting. And officers like to talk to other officers. They really don't like to go to talk to a counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist, whatever, because the fear of maybe a promotion or that someone's going to say something that would eventually hurt them.
Right. One of the things that I talk about often with people is the idea that while resources are available, while there is a therapist that they can go see, that there is no privacy and they don't have the same right to having all of their information protected, confidentiality, the way that the rest of the public does. So it's not the same. So there's that fear that the therapist works for their supervisors and
Right.
reports to their supervisors. So when the general public, who doesn't understand, who doesn't see why, well, we give them a therapist, why don't they use it? They don't see those complexities.
That's 100% correct. The stigma out there is if I show my emotions, if I show somebody how something has really impacted me, how a critical incident has affected my life, there's the camaraderie is there, but it's still not like it should be. When the brother's down, you got to pick them up, and a lot of people are hurting. Not everyone is living a perfect life. I mean, everyone out there has some issues going on, but it's how they handle the issues and how strong they are. I remember in the academy they said that be strong, uh, don't show weakness, don't be that weak link, and it was brought to you from day one. You're tougher than everybody else, but we're all human beings. We all experience different things, how we in life, and it's how we react to them. I remember one instructor in the academy, he said, who's married here and who's in the class? We had about 40 officers or recruits in the class, and probably 25 were married. So they said 80% of you are going to be divorced by the time your career ends. And I thought, boy, is that a large number? It's a lot larger than the general population. Is it because of the stress? Is it because what we see out there? What is it? And it's a lot of times officers is like living in two separate lives. They go home and they just shut down. They're not going to tell their significant other, their husband, their wife, their boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it may be they're coming home to, that, hey, I had a real rough day. I seen a decapitated person doing a traffic stop. I saw a shooting. I saw a homicide. I saw a stabbing, whatever it may be. Officers see a lot more out there than the general public, and it was true to form. About 80% of the from my class are divorced that stood up that day.
It's really interesting you mentioned that, because just yesterday I was doing a research project and I looked up the statistics, and the statistics that they're quoting, they're saying up to 75, but they're like, we don't actually know for sure the numbers. So we're going to say, between 40 and 75%.
Right.
But I was going to start asking people what they saw in their departments so I could get a little bit more of a valid idea of, I expected it to be closer to the high end too.
Chris, there's some guys that have 25, 30 years on, they're married 3, 4 times already. And you could see the cynicism in them that how we were speaking before, that there's a gradual change in when you, from the day you start the academy to the day you retire from your career. People do change and officers do change in that time. And I'm finding more cynicism now with 12 or 13 years on the job, as much as I saw that with somebody with 25 or 30 years on the job. It's there. I think that's the way of life. It's what we're dealing with out there. I consider 3 things for a police officer to deal with. And the first thing is the administration. The bosses, their supervisors, they always worried about who's going to replace the person that may be supervising them. Will they lose their squad car? Will they lose their beat? Will they lose their vacation? Will they do anything? Will anything change because of that supervisor or the administration? And now they have to listen to them. And then the second thing is the job itself. As a police officer, you encounter, we're not dealing with altar boys all day long. We're dealing with criminals, people that really do not like the police. A lot like the police, but a lot do not either. So we're dealing with the criminal element and aspect of our job. It's nice to help people, and that's one benefiting factor there. And then the next thing that we deal with is our family, and coming home to our family. But a lot of these officers are working 12-hour days. As we spoke before, they're not getting days off. When you can't get a day off and working all these hours, depression starts to set in, anger starts to set in. You might come home and take it out on your husband, your wife, or whatever, and it does affect our officers to a point. They may start drinking a little bit more, and I hate to say it, with police suicide has always has been a passion of mine to stop it, to stop what's happening to our officers. But the we need to change, and we need to change somehow. But everyone be on board, and everybody talks about it, but let's start doing something about it. And the thing that I would like to do, I'd like to propose, Krista, and that is starting to happening in some of the academies across the country, is where an officer has to shoot once a year to qualify to be an officer. And sometimes people shoot 2, 3 times a year to qualify. My thing is, if you go qualify that day you go qualify, or that week you go qualify, whatever it is, that's when you should take a mental health wellness day. And that's when you go talk to a psychologist, a therapist, a peer support member, anyone. You're mandated to go talk to somebody, even if you don't say a word. I think it would help relieve that stigma that's out there. I really believe that with all my heart. If we start doing that, it'll be more effective, and we'll hopefully have less suicide. Because I mean, if we take that stigma away, now I go talk to that counselor once a year or even twice a year if I have to. Maybe I can go see that person a little bit more. And if something's really bothering me, even on the phone or through Zoom calls or whatever, it's something you don't have to leave your house now. That's what I love about with Zoom calls. You don't have to leave. I could talk to you if you were a therapist right from my home. So there's so many great advances that we need to take advantage of.
I love that. Our theory here at Battle to Be, we're actually taking a much more aggressive stance than that. We're trying, and of course it's always trying, to implement an entire new system that begins before hire and people actually get an informed consent. They get an understanding of what post-traumatic stress is. They get an understanding of what suicide prevention and awareness is. They get all the statistics that go with the career that they're trying to start. And just like working out, they have a system of counselors, coaches, peer support, all the lighter stuff. They don't have to see a therapist all the time. Because if we have mental health maintenance from the very beginning and
Okay.
everybody goes once a week, just like you go to the gym, then everyone is seeing someone. Everyone has to talk to someone. And it doesn't matter, just like you said, it doesn't matter what you say or how you use them. But the fact that everyone has to go means you're not strange or broken or wrong, and no one will notice if you have something important to say, or if you have a really bad day and you want to cry, or whatever has to be released. It's just normal. It
Right.
just happens because we do this all the time. Our mental health has just become another workout.
I agree. God, that is so good that Battle to Be is doing that. That's a wonderful thing. I agree wholeheartedly of everything that you said. You know what? I look at it as if I broke my arm, a physical ailment. All right, I broke my arm on the job. I'm going to get it fixed, and I'll probably come back stronger with that arm ever before. And I look at it the same way. Like if I need to talk to somebody, if I hate to say a mental illness. I don't think it's a mental illness. It might be depression, might be anger management issues, anything. But don't don't take an officer out of law enforcement just because he's having some issues mentally. I hate to say mentally, but mentally. And to me, if you talk to someone, you come back stronger. Like that broken arm, you're going to come back stronger and be a much better officer instead of letting an officer go. And what happens? You dig a hole deeper, like in Illinois. If I would call right now and say, I'm a Chicago police officer and I want to kill myself. Now it's on tape on 911 that I want to kill myself. Illinois State Police comes, takes my FOID card away. They'll take my badge, my shield, everything, ID. And now what happened? I need help. And what did they do? They just now I can't be an officer anymore. I just dug that hole deeper. So that's why a lot of officers don't want to take the chance of telling anybody how they feel or how they're hurting or what's bothering them, for fear of they're going to lose their job and never be an officer with something that their whole career is based on. It's based on something I've always wanted to do, and then I'll no longer be able to provide for my family or myself if I quote tell everybody something's wrong with me. So that's what we're facing now, and I'm glad EAP and there's a lot of other places around that have put more staff on if an officer does come through to talk to someone. I'm very happy about that.
So, how long were you an officer?
I was a Chicago police officer 22 years, and 20 of those years I was in peer support, and I was so happy. You know what, Chris, I went on a lot of police suicides. One of the units I was in was called preventive programs, and we handled any officer that was hurt or killed. And we not only did I go out as sometimes as peer, but sometimes as in my unit in preventive programs to an officer that uh, took his own life. And it was like the elephants in the room and nobody wants to talk about it. That's why when I wrote my third book, it was called Is Police Suicide, Is Police Officers, Is Police Culture Killing Our Officers? And with my fourth book is called Breaking the Barriers. I'm really proud of this book, is that it gives different um, light to things that officers can do to better themselves, to change the way we support the physical and mental health of police officers. It's so important that officers, we're human. We need to cry. You ever see an officer cry? I'm telling you, I was embarrassed to cry out on the field. I was saying, well, Ron's the weak link. He's emotional. They teach you don't be emotional in the academy. I said we never had a wellness program in the academy. All we had was tactical training. Well, we don't ever want to see an officer get killed in the line of duty. We do see that, but we have more officers killing themselves from suicide than we do in line of duty. That's one officer down is too much for me. But what does that tell you? We're technically we're doing good, but emotional survival, I don't think we're doing so well. So that's what we need to change, and that's why I get on my soapbox about change. And I am just glad that I met you at the conference and was able to speak to you. I think very highly of everything that you've done and you've accomplished as an author as well. And that your podcast, how you could reach out, even helping one other person, Krista, is so important. And I think if one person sees this podcast and says, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to go talk to a therapist, or I'm going to go talk to somebody in peer support. That's what I need to do." Then it's all, to me, it's all worthwhile. All the hard work and writing books and publishing and all that. It really it does take a lot out of a person, but it's all well worth it in the end. And I think that's what we are thankful for just getting the word out. And I thank you for that, and Battle to Be as well. So
It is challenging for sure to be heard amongst all of the chaos out there. But it, it, those of us with a mission, those of us with passion, we just get louder and louder to make
right.
sure that we finally get noticed. So
And I feel your passion. Just speaking to you, I knew that you were passionate about what you were doing there, and with mental health and mental wellness, and then the sexual predation too that we spoke about as well. So you really have a great passion for that as well, and I appreciate you on that.
so I want to talk a little bit about a topic that might be a little taboo out there because people don't want to talk about the external culture. We all know that there's a warrior culture. We all know that our first responders, especially police officers, have this like strength and they're not allowed to have emotion and they're not allowed to reach out. But there's also another cultural problem going on right now. And I'm wondering how much you are noticing it affecting the people that you're around. The idea that the hatred, the lack of respect, the lack of even compliance when it comes to just a simple traffic stop. Everybody wants to have, not everybody, of course, but in a general manner, speaking generally right now, there's this like attitude that I don't have to do what you say. And, you pulled me over for some stupid reason, not for anything real. And we used to have, you knew how to behave. When an officer pulled you over, you said yes sir, and you handed over your driver's license and there was no question. You maybe got a ticket or you didn't and you moved on. But how do you think this change is affecting our folks on the street?
That's a great question. The morale out in the police department today, and I believe it's in every department, is so low. I loved being the police, and when I came on, it was probably one of the best times. Is that when you told someone to stop, they stopped. They listened. They respected you, but we respected them as well. And it's all on how you approach someone. You can approach somebody as a jerk, and what they're going to react as to your reaction as well. But if you show that respect in the beginning, and that mutual respect was there, not everybody showed you that respect. There was a lot of people that didn't, but I mean, you were able to take someone in and process them and do what you needed to do. And they went to jail. But today it's coming from being proactive. When you see somebody on the street, that you say, God, that guy just doesn't look right, or I'm not talking about a racial profiling thing. I'm just talking about someone in general. It looks like he has a gun on his side. That's Anybody can be with a gun on their side, or just this guy doesn't. What is this guy doing in the back alley? What is he doing back there? Whatever. So you're proactive. You can't even be proactive today. So that's really changing the culture. You're more reactive, and the people that are being reactive, they may go on. The cops are going to call. They may go on a burglary call. They may stay on that a little extra time, and then when they're done, they'll wait for another call. They're not going to be circling the areas, going through alleys. That's what we did. We did that. We were proactive as police officers. I was telling my wife today, we were driving this afternoon, and I told my wife that we were driving on the south side of Chicago. I said, the district I was in was south. It was in Bridgeport in the 9th district. And my first gun was on 51st Street. I remember when I was passed, I told my wife, that's where I got my first gun pinch from as an officer. I remember exact spot and what we did and everything else. But you can't do that. I don't want to say you can't do that. Everybody's saying it's either racial, and I hate that because the respect has to be there, and it's not. And I think that's what we're fighting. We're not only it's it just makes our job much more difficult to do when you don't have anybody in your corner. In the 9th district just last week, they had a shooting, and it was a gang against a gang, and a young man got killed. But the police officers were there, and they were throwing bricks and bottles and everything else at the officers that were trying to help this young man that got shot. I mean, there was no respect. Where instead of somebody coming up and helping the police and say, "Hey, that guy did it," they were throwing objects at us. I wouldn't say at us. I consider myself the police, but they were throwing objects at the police and making it very difficult for them to do their job. I mean, our criminal justice system has really kind of just gone downhill. I don't know how to fix it. I don't, it's some countries that take it like that, take an eye for an eye, or if you steal something, they'll cut your finger or whatever. I don't know if I think caning might be the way to go, but I don't think that'll ever happen. Because if somebody does something, if you hurt them in a way that they won't do it again, instead of putting them in prison, that might be something, but that'll never be. So I don't know what we need to do to change it. But being a police officer today is so demanding. Not many police officers are even coming on the job. In January, we had 400 police officers leave the city of Chicago. Normally, it's about 100 a month is from attrition. In January, we had 400 leave, and guess how many graduated the academy?
Maybe a quarter of that.
13.
Oh, geez.
400 leaving, 13 coming in. Come on, we need more. We need more. So Chicago has lowered their standards to taking somebody in, but the void is going to be there. I speak to many cops all the time. A lot of my friends, I go to districts all the time, and they'll say, "Ryan, I got 2 years, and I can't wait to get the hell out of here." Police officers with 2-3 years on the job are turning their stars in. That would never happen. Never happened when I was on the job. Never. 2-3 years on there, coming in, girls, guys, turning in their stars. I'm done. I don't need it. So what's going to happen? We don't have anybody else that's coming in to take care of the older officers that are ready to leave. We don't have anybody. It's going to be even tougher for everybody that's there. They're going to try to find somebody, the officers that are on desk duty, and put them back on the street somehow, and maybe bring more civilians in to handle paperwork at the desks. That might be a possibility as well. But it's tough out there, Krista. It's really tough being an officer. That's where they're getting depressed because they can't do anything, and there's no support for them. The administration doesn't support them, and the people on the street. Everybody's looking for a free ride. If you grab somebody the wrong way, what happens? Now they'll complain on you. They'll maybe sue you for what is it worth it when they can go somewhere else and get the same amount of money or more working at a different job? So I don't know.
When you were an officer, 20 years ago, was ambush a fear that you had? Was that even something that was happening?
I think it was in the back of every officer's mind, because you never know what's going to happen. Um, how someone really reacts that you don't know. You get a call and say, there's a domestic. You're walking in. You may be walking into God knows what. It's one of the most. It's a scary situation, a domestic anyway. That and traffic stops are 1 and 2 when in officer safety issues that they can get hurt or killed. But you never know what you're walking into. You're always worried about being ambushed, but again, it's always to be on the side of caution, Krista, is to be careful, to always watch your back. Having uh, good partners, I think, is important, and talking communication is the best. Is you got to talk with your partners. And I had a real great partner. His name was Dave Hoffenkamp. We were together for years, and we had a lot of fun together. We had fun on the job, and I think that's cops can't have fun anymore. What they're doing. I mean, we had a lot of fun on the job, and we laughed a lot, and we did our jobs and did it. Did the best our ability. But we actually had fun, and which is a lot of officers today, they don't have fun. You can see they're miserable out there. So again, something needs to change.
Right? And I think a lot of some things need to change, and I think that might be the problem is there's no one single solution. I think we're looking at so many facets of a problem that there really is no easy fix. There is no end all be all solution. We've lost the respect for life. We've lost the respect for authority. We've lost the respect for rules and
Right.
regulations and social structure. And it's just, for people who are trying to help enforce the rules, if nobody's respecting them, it creates a really big challenge.
Problem, right? And we have a state's attorney here in Chicago. They're out. They're out before the officers out on the street. So she's letting people go that should be locked up, and it's coming back to bite her. And I hope she doesn't get reelected again. But where you live, Krista, I mean, do you see your officers being, um, I don't want to say depressed, but being overworked? Maybe that might be a good word.
Well, I'm in Texas, so we're actually still we're very we're a very Republican state. We're a
Okay.
very law and order state. We have a lot of there's a lot of military pride here and a lot of officer pride here, but we do have some areas that are turning problematic. So we have some of our smaller cities where they've got the catch and release program going on, where we've got a couple judges that are not keeping people in. Um, there's been a lot of talk about implementing 3 strikes, which I think is, for me, I like the 3 strikes rule, and I don't care if you stole a lollipop. Three
Right.
by the time you get everybody progresses. So if you're robbing houses, you're going to get violent. If you're whatever you're doing, you're just going to get worse and worse and worse if you're keep on repeating. So, and everybody in Texas has guns. So,
Right. Right.
you're robbing houses with a gun and you intend to use it if you need to. So, I love the idea of 3 strikes, and I think every state should have that because we just had someone who was on his 13th major burglary.
Okay.
and he was out on a, like, nothing. It was maybe, I can't remember what the article said, but it was like $100 bond after 30
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
major crimes, and I was just like, "This person's gonna hurt someone, and you have to wait until this person hurts someone." Like, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, our state, we have lost more officers than any other right now. We are way far ahead of the curve.
In suicide or in line of duty death?
In overall loss of officers, and it's been everything. It's been,
Okay.
we had one get run over by a car, which, which happens a lot. Um, we have had suicide, we've had COVID, we've had, so it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
We had an officer ambushed, shot in their car, like, but Texas should not be, we're not usually the cities with the highest numbers of officers down, and it just keeps happening. I feel like I hear about it every single day. There's just another report, and I'm just like, what is happening here? And it
Right.
really is everything. It's people are not paying attention, people are not following rules, and you move over when there's a cop car, you don't,
I
or
know.
just small simple things that we just don't do anymore. So
Right.
it all compounds.
I agree. You know what's scary is that in Buffalo with that young man
Mm.
that shot the 10 innocent people out there. Now they're making a big racial thing out of it. Um, but in Chicago, you open up the TV and on the TV, it's like how many. It's like how many were shot. How many were shot last night? That shock value is gone. I mean, oh, we had 30 shot one weekend. I think we had 60 or 70 people shot. I can't not many people were killed, but maybe I want to say not many, 12, and one is one too many, but 80 people with gun shooting. I know in Texas, everybody has a gun there, but you never hear about it like you do in Chicago. Chicago, it's like every day. Every day, there's, especially in the warm weather. We had a great day today. It was 80 degrees. I got to tell you, we probably, if I open up the news at 10 o'clock tonight, I would almost guarantee we had 30 shootings. I could almost bet you. I'll call you tomorrow and say how many shootings we had tonight because the warm weather, we always seem that we have a higher amount of shootings, and it's just a shame. Where in Buffalo, they had 10, and it's all the president's even talking about it. That's every day here. That's every day. I feel like we're in Beirut, so it's not a good thing. But being an officer today is, I wanted my daughters. I have three girls, and I wanted when I first came on, I said, you know what, girls, I really believe being in law enforcement is a great thing. I really would, if you would want to follow my footsteps. And each one of them said, you know what, Dad, I really don't want to do that. I want to do this, 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 and this. I said, I am so glad that they didn't go in law enforcement. I mean, but in the beginning, I wanted them to only because I loved the job, and I was hoping that they would, um, you know, go into law enforcement. But I am so happy that they didn't go into law enforcement, Krista. And it's like, you know, but we need officers, and we need good officers out there, officers that are understanding and that will take care of themselves. When you leave the door, when you leave the station, you got to say, you know what, I'm no longer an officer, and you got to go home and take care of yourself, and that's what we need to do today. We need to really take care of ourselves after on the job and after the job. After when we leave the station, even when we retire, we have a lot of. We just had an officer last week uh, retired just a couple of years, and he took his life. Um, some guys have really nothing to do when they retire. They have to really prepare for retirement. I love being retired. I'm going to be retired 7 years, but I feel that my calling was writing these books and going out to different seminars, going across the country and speaking. I love it. I'm meeting a lot of new people, but that's like a new chapter for me, a new chapter in my life that I never did before. I didn't travel as much as I did now that I'm retired, and meeting wonderful people like you too that really have the same passion as I do. So I think just helping, as I said earlier, helping one person, that means the world to me. I was in Virginia, and a girl came up to me. I was signing books at the table, and she was there for a long time looking at the book. I said, "Would you like a book?" She says, I really can't afford one. I'm not charging a lot on the book, but I said, I'm going to give you one. She says, well, it's not for me. It's for my brother. He's having a difficult time. I said, you know what? I'm going to give one to you and one to your brother. And I signed them both. And I said, I don't want a penny. Play it forward. And if you need to call me, I'll give you my card. And if your brother needs to call me, please do. So I feel like I'm always with Pure, where if someone really needs to talk about it, I've talked to people all the time. I'll get a call, and I don't know who it is. Sometimes I don't answer because I'm worried about scam calls and all that. But it's somebody saying, hey, Ron, I have your book. I want to talk to you. It's okay, great. So then I'll call them back if they leaving a message. But um, I've talked to many, many people that are really hurting out there, Krista. And I just think having an ear to talk about it, where you know that whatever they say is in confidence, and then whatever I tell them or to discuss with them. And I think listening is the number one key. There was one gentleman that I spoke to, and I'm not going to mention any names, but he spoke for a good half hour. I had hardly a word or two into the conversation. I was just listening. I was just, okay, okay. I just want to let them know I'm still there. But I just think that some people really need to talk and get some of this stuff off their chest. And finding someone that they can talk to is so important. And I think that's what we need to do. So just like our military, we're losing 22 a day on military. Same thing. We need to help our military out there too. So it's just a shame. One person is way too many for me, Chris. So that's how I look at it. I get emotional with this. So
Yeah, we just lost an Air Force captain, shot himself today.
today,
So, I mean, we see it every day, but every time, every time you see it, it does. It hits home that we weren't fast enough. We didn't fix it soon enough. We weren't
right,
there for those people. And it's not just, I mean, there's a ton of us out here, trying to change things, but there's not enough people trying to change things. There's not enough voices. There's not enough programs. There's not enough resources. And the resources that are there, oftentimes the people who need them don't know they're there. So
right, right,
how do we get that information to the people who need it the most? It's a big challenge.
right. But some of them are scared to take that information though too, Krista. They really are. They. I had a young man call me, and I said, "Listen, there's a couple rehab centers that I recommend. One's in Utah, one's in Florida." And I said they won't say anything to anyone on the job if you want to go that route. And they're worried. They're worried about their profession, and I don't blame them. I think you know what, being to talk to someone, it does take a lot to open up to someone, and that's why I love peer, is that it's another officer talking to another officer. And I'm just wondering if they have that for the military, where a military can talk to somebody in the military, like a peer support. I don't know about that. I'd like to try to find out if they have that, but it's something
Some
I can.
places, peer support is universal, but it's location specific. So some departments, some bases, it's all about whether it's really about whether people who are in the military, not the top people, but whether people who are serving have put together a peer resource group.
Okay.
So it kind of comes from the bottom up. It's
Right.
all it takes is someone to go and get the trainings, and it's very easily accessible. Here in Texas, it's very, very accessible. We have a lot of different organizations. Now I'm not going
That
to
people can talk to,
Yeah,
that someone can talk to, right?
our mental health organizations for the state actually teach people how to run peer support groups. So you can go for free and do like a 4-hour workshop that teaches you how to ask the right questions and how to listen, which is
Okay,
really all you need for peer support, right? You
right.
just have to be able to say, Where are you? Where do you want to be? How are you going to get there?
You're right.
Those are the big questions, right? And then, I'm here to hear you and actually be able to listen and then say, okay, this is where you are right now. How can we get you to a better place? Let's
Right.
take some action. Let's do something. So peer support isn't relegated to, you have to be this educated, experienced mental health professional. It's very simple and easy and accessible, but I think so many people just don't know how to get that going and how to use it.
Right. And you have to have the right person and the right fit with you as well. You might have someone that says, you know what, because you have to be, that confidentiality has to be there where someone talks to me, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to, I never even tell my wife if when I speak to someone about some of the issues that they're having. She never even asked me. She already knows better on that. But because I would go out, I'd be on call 24/7 with Pure, like a few weeks out of the year with my team. And it's a confidentiality that you have to instill in them. It has to be there where they actually trust you or trust the other person that they're dealing with. That is so important, and really listening to them. Active listening is so important. And we had a state trooper that killed himself. And my first thought when I found out that he took his life on the expressway, young kid, about 30 some years old, 32 years old, with 4 or 5 years on the job. What bothered me is that my first thought was, how come I couldn't get him a book to read one of my books? That's my first thought, is how come I wish this kid would have called me or talked to me. And I think that was my first thought when I found out that he passed. And now that's what I feel like everything. I really want to get the word out that it's okay to get help. And you're not going to be that weak link in the chain. And that stigma is, we need to take that stigma down. And that's how I look at it. That stigma has to go. That stigma has to be buried in my eyes. So
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah,
feel.
on Facebook today, there was a tiny interaction that literally encompassed the whole thing. There was a young man, a 19-year-old, had just graduated high school, and he said, "I wanna be either a firefighter or a police officer," and it was on a first responder page. And he said, "Does anyone have any feedback, which is better in terms of salary and resources and all this other stuff?" He's like, I can't decide." And the first comment that popped up was, "Nobody hates firemen."
Right. Nobody hates firemen. You know
And
what? I love firemen because that's where we were when I saw you, Krista. Nobody hates firemen. They really don't. When you talk about policemen, that some say, if we're too aggressive, that we're bullies. If we're not aggressive, we're wimps. Um, but as a fireman, I mean, I admire firemen. I really do. And they go to the fire together. They come home together. Talk. They can talk about different things, but they still have as many issues as police officers do. I just believe it's a calling. It's what in your heart, what you want to be. I could have been a fireman. My passion was being a police officer. That's something that I wanted to do, but I didn't come on till late. I worked for my dad for many, many years, and when my dad passed away is when I really decided. I said, you know what? I've always wanted to be a copper. This is what I'm going to do, and I really believe that it is just like how what you're doing, Krista, and God bless you for what you're doing, and it's a calling. I really believe it's a special person to be a police officer, and I think it's a special person to be a fireman. But I think every fireman, if you ask 100 firemen, if we have how many people are watching us right now that are police officers, they'll say, be a fireman, don't be a cop. I can almost guarantee it. Firemen would say, "Oh, I love my job." I don't know how many would say be a cop. I really don't. But I think more police officers would say, especially in today's environment, that I think it's better to be a fireman today than being a police officer. I think it would be less stress, and I think that even though they're both stressful jobs, don't get me wrong, but I think it would be less stress being a fireman than it would be a policeman. But that's the whole thing. The stress is the killer. Stress is the killer out there. So,
Well, I'm going to tell a little tiny story that I've never told anyone. And
okay,
it's always astonishing to me why no one's ever asked me why I'm so passionate about police officers.
okay,
Because I make it very clear that police, like I'm really, really drawn to fixing this for police officers. It's like my first priority. So I have a criminal justice degree and I specialized in forensics and I
okay,
worked in investigating human trafficking with a contract unit. My objective that whole time, I wanted to be a police officer more than anything in the world, and I was living in Alaska at the time, and an officer shot himself after a failed rescue. We were supposed to be getting some teenagers out, and the person decided that they weren't gonna let him out and ended up killing some of the kids, and, an officer decided at that moment that that was just it was whatever for whatever reason, that was just too much. So, took his own life. That very same week, 2 officers were there was a domestic call. They were called out in one of our villages out there, and they were ambushed. They got out of their car and they were killed by someone who was on the other side, not at the home that they'd been called to. And I had interviewed, I had put in my paperwork, and I was going to apply. Like, I'd gotten the request for the interview, and I was
okay.
going to be an officer, and when I went in and talked to them, when I went for my interview, I found out that I couldn't go straight to investigating, which is what I was comfortable with, and that I would have to spend 2 years
Patrol, patrol
as a
officer.
street cop.
Yeah,
And my husband, who is very aware of my personality, said, You can't. You'll never live through that. You are not dominant, or you're not going to make it as a street cop." And I went, "You know, I actually like, I don't people aren't going to respect me. And I recognize that we're living in a world where if you are not the right fit, if you are not that personality that's going to command respect, you're gonna be dead in 2 seconds flat." So I was like, "I'm not gonna survive 2 years." And I decided to not do it.
to
And I
withdraw.
spent all that time, all that money, all that effort. That was my dream. I was going to be an officer, and I went, "I'm gonna die an officer, and I'm not gonna die in, like, you know, a blaze of glory. I'm gonna step out of my car and get shot in the face before I even ask for someone's driver's license." So I was like, "I can't do that." I let my fear win, but that was the reality of the job. That was the reality of what you face every single day is you get up knowing that when you step out of your car to go ask for that driver's license, someone might do that to you.
Right. You never know. You never
So
know. And then especially when you're saying goodbye to your family, that might be the last time you say goodbye to them. So it's like, my thing is never go to bed mad because you never know that, um, especially as a cop, when you may not be coming home that day. So I can't tell you how many times when we were when officers that got killed in the line of duty or took their own lives, and how many of the family members said, you know what, we had an argument, and that's the last time they have no recourse of going back and saying I'm sorry, or or I forgot to tell them I loved them, or I forgot to tell her I love them, whatever. So, you know what, it's being good to the people that you're with right now, and because you never know what tomorrow will bring, Krista. And you know what, you made the right decision. Is that it's you look at what you've accomplished right now, and you're helping so many other people. um I believe when one door closes, another one opens, and I think the man upstairs knows what he's doing. And changing your mind might have been the perfect thing, because you might have gotten hurt or killed on the line of duty, you don't know, or god forbid, taking your own life, and that's not good. So I really believe that if you listen to your heart, it'll tell you the way to go. And that's why, so many people say, how come you keep writing books and stuff about? Because it's a passion of mine. It's something that, again, helping some other officers that really need it. because there was a lot of things that happened to me that I was scared to go get help. I was scared to talk to somebody about it because the fear of, hey, Ron Rufo's the weak link in this chain. I didn't want that. I didn't want that to be, but it's like I needed to talk to somebody myself, and I was changing in a way that I wasn't sleeping well. I was getting a lot of complaints, and that wasn't me. I was the happy-go-lucky cop, not the cop that was, getting complained against with, verbal complaints or physical or anything else that way. So I knew I needed to get help, and when I did, I even parked. I don't know if I told you the story. I parked 3 or 4 blocks away from EAP. I didn't want anybody to see my car, and I looked like a thug because I had a hoodie on, I had a hat on, I kind of crouched in, so I didn't want anybody to know that Ron Rufo needed to go get some counseling because I needed it. I know I did it, and that was the whole thing. I said, "Why am I hiding it? Why am I hiding that it's okay? It's you know what? We got to make this okay to get help." And it bothered the hell out of me. It really did. And I'm glad that that's why I think peer support really changed me, because a lot of stuff that happened to me early on in my career was quite substantial, where it really bothered. I said, I'm not getting paid enough for this. It's not right, especially when you see in death and everything else, especially to children. So, but that's what a lot of officers are really hurting today, and that's what we need to change, Krista. And I'm glad you're on the bandwagon. You're the leader of helping with that and getting the word out. And I admire you and Battle to Be for that. I really do.
And keep on writing. And we will do a project together. I know it. So I
Well,
know.
I would love to do some. I would love to write with you, Krista. I really would. That would be an honor. And that's I love writing. In fact, sometimes I'll get up early in the morning. My wife says, "What are you doing?" I say, I got to write this down because it just came to me or whatever." So, but I got to tell you, I have a great wife. She's downstairs right now, and she supports me no matter what I do, and that's the best thing when you have the support. Is that's amazing. That's 100% of what officers need today, and firefighters and paramedics and whatever. When I say officers, I mean first responders. We're all in the same. We all have our same issues all the way through. And I'm so glad I met you at in Oak Brook, Illinois, with that seminar, because it was firemen, and I'd never been to a fireman seminar before, and the peer support firemen, and that really opened up my eyes because I was going to rewrite my police suicide book, but I said, you know what? It's going to be a first responder suicide, and that's what I want to do to help. And so that changed my whole life with firemen, and meeting you there really inspired me as well.
Everything happens for a reason.
It really does, Krista.
Connections are very, very powerful. And this is a battle we can't fight alone. This is something we all have to come together and kind of create a tidal wave of change. And the only way to do that is for all of us, everyone who's at those conventions, everyone who is like struggling to find their place in that battle. Like, I hear so many people say this is just can't be, but they don't know how to articulate how to change it, or they don't know what they want to do to be a piece of that puzzle. And if we all just get together on the same page and start making policy suggestions and start really looking at what are things we actually can do, not this is a big picture and we want it to change, but what steps can we take to actually start breaking this down?
Right.
And
I
we do it
agree.
together, we'll get there.
That's why I wrote Breaking the Barriers, and we need to break that barrier, and that's important. Hearing other people's stories is so enlightening about how they've come to terms with what they've struggled through. Billy Sinkay is a sergeant. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful speaker. I don't know if you know Bill. He tells a great story, and I got to tell you, you're every word he says, you're like you've been there as with him, and he's a great guy. He's with Haven rehab centers, but Billy Sinkay was he's a sergeant, and he's got an excellent story. If you ever want to have him on, Krista, I think you would it would be a great enlightenment. And Karen Hurley too is another person that you may want to put on. She's wonderful as well. And Scott. So they're two good other people that I've known personally, and I'm trying to work with them a little bit more because of the message that they're putting out.
Have you read Michael's book yet?
Michael Francis, which
I
one?
always say his name right. The Segu.
Oh my, so no, I have not. I have. He hasn't sent it to me. I haven't gotten it. No, Segru, I think is his Michael
Yeah,
Segru.
it just came out, I think, like a
The
week
other,
or two ago.
yeah, last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I got an. He sent me a message that it came out, but he said he would send me one, but I haven't received it or haven't whatever. So, but I mean, he's busy. I mean,
Right.
but I haven't seen it. No. When you said Michael, I have a good friend of mine. His name is Michael Francis. He just wrote a book too. He was a mobster in the Colombo family, and he's a friend of mine. Right, my wife's and a friend of my wife and I. But he found God, and he's a dear friend. And that's when you said Michael. I said, "Oh my God, you know Michael too." So, but
Well, he also sounds like a really interesting person.
Michael Francis, I got to tell you, he is a wonderful person. If you go on his YouTube channel, he's quite enlightening. A great speaker. I went to go see him in California past October, my wife and I, and we went to he went to the church where he was speaking at because he says about how he found God in prison, and um, he said, I didn't like police officers when he was growing up, and he said there's a gentleman, an officer was my friend, and he told me to stand up, and I stood up in front of the whole crowd, and he said, I'm proud to call him my friend. So, and I'm proud to call him mine as well. But he said I would never ever think I'd be friends with a police officer, and here I'm friends with Ron Rufo. So that's good. That made me happy.
We're all people.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that's one of the things we have to remember is that we're all people.
right, right. It's having a heart, and I think that's showing your heart. And I know I show mine on my sleeve as you do, Krista, that you really care about people and helping others. And I think that has to be all the way around. And that's why I'm so proud to be a police officer and helping other police officers as best I can. It just pains me that when I hear an officer get killed on the line of duty or who takes their own life, it just pains me with that. That um, makes me work harder, put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I get emotional with this, but I do.
No, I think it's a beautiful thing that you can show your emotions because I think it shows our people that we need to. It is okay and it happens and we all cry and we all hurt and we all feel pain and we're all in it together and yeah.
You I couldn't have done this 15 years ago. I would have been crying. I would have been the tough guy, but I've changed. So
I still say strength is actually allowing.
yeah,
Strength is not in the shoving it down. Shoving it down is easy, but it eats you up.
it
Strength
does. I
is
shoved it down quite a bit. Oh my God, unbelievable. I'm totally different than I was then. So, but I think we all do. One guy at a seminar said, "Suck it up, Buttercup," and it really kind of resonated with me because that's what happens. Just suck it up. I remember one guy said at roll call, he said, "Suck it up, kid. This is what you signed in for." So I said, because we had a real bad accident that we handled, and I said, God, this is not. What am I doing? This is not what I thought. I know you had accidents, but like one after another one, it was just too much. And this guy said, "Suck it up." And he said, "If you want to go to the bar, some of us are going to the bar tonight. And that's what that was their way of coping, is going to the bar. And I
Yeah.
said, you know what? No, I'm not going to the bar. It's not me. I'm not doing it. So I don't drink anyway, but um, any excuse for a copper to drink, let's go to the bar. Then that's it. So I'm not saying all cops are alcoholics, but some of them like to tote a little bit. And some of the guys when I first came on, they really like to have a good time. But that's it. That's
It's
in
a
the past.
coping mechanism.
What's that?
It's a coping mechanism.
Coping. Oh God, yes, it is. So
And all coping mechanisms are useful until they're not.
until they're not right, until they take it the wrong way or overdo something too.
Right.
Um,
All things in moderation.
what's that, Krista?
All things in moderation.
All things in moderation. I agree 100%.
So we should probably go because we've been on here for an hour, but
Okay.
what is the most important thing that you would want to say to people as we sign off?
As we sign off, well, thank you for having me as number one. The second thing, let's bury that stigma, and let's get the help that we need. And it's okay to get help, and that's the whole thing. If you're struggling, reach out to someone, reach out to me, reach out to peer, reach out to anyone that will listen to you. And I want to make it mandatory where everybody has to go get help at some point, once a year, or twice a year, whatever it is. That's why I said when you shoot, you go to take a mental health day, or 2 or 3, whatever that your whatever the administration will allow. So that's my whole thing. Let's stop the stigma, um, and let's we got to save more officers out there, because every officer is hurting in some way. They really are, and the job just does not help either. So that's my thing. So I want to thank you, Krista, for letting me share.
Thank you for coming. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Always. Let's keep in touch, and I'll send you my book is on street safety. It's that's the next one coming out, and then I'm going to redo the police suicide book to first responder suicide. So I'm going to rewrite that. I want to put you in that one as well. I want your thoughts, and I'll reach out to you. I'll get back to you on that one, though. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Chris, for having me. I really admire you, and it's been an honor to be on your program.
And we will definitely stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Krista.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day.
You too.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being with us tonight. If you are watching this podcast off of our Anchor, please feel free to support Battle to Be and our mission with the button that you'll find down underneath. It just says support this podcast. If you are watching live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or the Battle to Be page, please feel free to go to battle2be.org and you can support us there. And if you don't know what we're all about yet, and you don't know about the Ferryman mission, do take a little bit of time to get to know us and what we're doing. And I will see you guys all in the next few days. We are going to have another guest next week. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember, we are all human. We all have feelings. We all have needs. We all have families that we want to get home to. So think about that the next time that you get pulled over, or the next time that you see an officer on the side of the road. Take some time to remember that they are human with stories and names and lives and families, just like you, just like me.